So we have the Catalan opening on the board. Both players rushes on their move. The idea for white here is to simply fianchetto the light square bishop on the diagonal and castles, and there's a slight mistake there, as we can see. The game goes on. We have knight to e5, trying to gain space in the center, and now white strikes with pawn to c4, trying to open the center as much as possible. We have pawn to c6. Black chooses the initiative, and here comes the move queen to a4. So queen to a4 here was played to try and work on the light squares. As we can see, the queen controls some certain squares in the position, and then black decides to exchange the knights. Knight takes, and then knight to d7. So the idea behind this move is to try and win the e pawn and also have a close center, but white decides otherwise, and then we have a trade of pawns on the board. Then now we have the move pawn to e4 now the idea behind this move is to try and open up the center, so it's not really a pawn sacrifice, as the queen and bishop can recapture the pawn. But here the idea is, if pawn captures the pawn, then we would have a rook to d1, which he plays here. So white tries to open up the position and activates his pieces as fast as possible. So here black has to be very careful in this position not to fall into a losing position, as we can see here. So a good alternative would be to play queen to c7. The idea would be to unpin, or a better move could be pawn to a6 with the idea of playing pawn to b5, closing up the queen's diagonal to the king. So he thinks about time, he plays the move pawn to a6, closing the diagonal for the king, and white develops his knight, also bringing another attacker into the game. But now we have pawn to b5, which is the best move according to the engines. Now it has closed the queen's diagonal, and the queen is forced to move to another square, but he decides to bring the queen back to b3. The idea is he could play pawn to b4, pawn to a4 later, and then try and work on those pawns as a weaknesses. But now he decides to go for queen to c7. A better move here would have been bishop to e7, but now we have a great move by white. Knight captures the e pawn. Now we are seeing here that we're trying to block his knight on the center square by playing knight to e6 to give him a very good advantage in the game. But here there is a good move that white can find, and it starts with the move knight to c5. But let's see if we can find the move. It's actually a concise move because it counter-attacks the queen, and yes, it's possible move. Yes, knight to c5. So it ends all of white attack because it forces a trade of pieces. So whenever pieces are being exchanged, the quality or the intensity of an attack on the chessboard greatly reduces, as we can see that we have crossed into the middle game position. So white tries to consider his chances. Should he go back? Should he retreat to the knight? But obviously it's not possible because the knight attacks the queen on b3. So he decides to capture the knight, and now bishop captures instead. So here we can see now that black has finally equalized according to the evaluation bar, and then he could just simply castle afterwards. But let's see. Now a good move here could be just to develop the bishop, the dark square bishop for white, because that is the only piece that isn't active on the board. So let's see. White is really taking a lot of time in this position trying to think, but he decides to capture the bishop on b7, and we have queen capture. So we can see here that black is actually making judicious use of his time by thinking on his opponent's time instead. So we can see the intensity of focus here that white has on the position, trying to find the key ideas and novelties that everything needed in the position must have. So after a deep thought, he decides to play bishop to f5, bishop to f4, which is a very candid move in the position, and then black finally castles. So it's very good for him. And please try and let me so yeah, rook to c1, rook to c8, and we can see here that both sides are trying to bring out their pieces to try and get an advantage in the position. But here now we have this move. So yeah, white decides to exchange bishops because he feels that the dark square bishop could cause a potential threat. But according to the theories in Blitz, the more pieces there are on the board, the more complications, and that is why he decides to withdraw the bishop back to e7 to try and keep the position going. And then because the more pieces are exchanged, the lesser time anyone will spend thinking in the position. So here, after some time again, white decides to bring his queen to the center by playing queen to a d3. So the idea could be to stop black from playing the move queen to e4 to try and attack the center pawn or something, to prevent black from synchronizing the queen. And now we have rook c d8. Now the idea behind this move is to simply just gain a tempo on the queen, and we can see here that that white is getting really low on time and he needs to start making his moves pretty quickly. So after some thoughts, he reaches out to his queen and then plays queen to c3. Then we have rook exchange, and we have the c rook now coming out to the d file. But then now white thinks what could be the best way. He decides to activate his other rook, but that could be the best way. We could also play a move like h6 to try and create a loft for the king, the British piece. But he looks at the position one more time, tries to find if there's any other best move, but he decides to go for the candid move here, rook to c8, trying to go try to activate the queen as fast as possible. So here white is still trying to go deep in the position, trying to find if there is any candid, I guess, that he should not miss. But here if we play a move like something like queen, it's quite easy, but something like queen to a5 with the idea of bringing the rook into the last rank. So there, but he decides to just play queen to e7, sorry, queen to e2, trying to just create some attacking threats in the position. Let's see here. We have now black finally decides to create a loft for the king by playing h6, and sacrifice is not possible. And here white decides to offer an exchange of hooks on the board, but black declines instead, and we can see that the level of intensity of the game is rising up. White needs to speed up his position because he is low on time, and he finds a very good move in a short span, but the engines call it a mistake. The idea is that they could have one queen to c3 as well, but he decides to play queen to a5, and then now rooks are exchanged on the board, and now we have queen to b6. Now the idea is to simply try and attack those weaknesses or the pawns that have been moved in a while, and now he brings his queen to the center, and here we have pawn to a5, trying to centralize the position, and the best move here will be bishop to c5, trying to bring the queen to infiltrate the position for black. And a good move could be something like bishop. Oh no, he has blundered here. That was a very bad move, because now the black has restricted his own dark square bishop, and the great move comes on board, queen to c3, and he decides yes, and he comes in with the best move now, bishop to e6. Now bishop to d6 now helps white to gain a pawn, but he's low on time. White needs to watch his time management on the board, and black decides to play the move bishop to e5, bishop to d4. Black safely brings pushes his pawn up to b3, and now we have the move queen to g5. I don't see the idea behind this move, because of queen to d8, queen to e8 could simply win the f pawn. But here it's something that white is low on time, and 3, 2, 1, and he has lost on time. And black spots it, and it was such a wonderful game. Seeing how white built an interesting advantage, but he forgot that he was playing a blitz time control. He had so many winning chances, and a simple check would have just added enough time for him to win. So if you like this video, thank you so much for sticking. Please kindly like and subscribe, and cheers to more videos.